What's up, everybody? This is the Hedge Mage, and we're back again for another Pauper video. So, previously last week, I had done a video on what I'm currently running for Orzhov ephemerate, and so today I kind of want to do a follow-up video to that and giving you guys a complete breakdown of how I sideboard against some of the top decks in the meta right now. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely stick around as I will be doing an in-depth guide on what I'm bringing in and what I'm taking out. As always, if you want to support the channel, if you could leave a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate the support. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. Right, so for playing either Is It Terror or Demir Terror or really any terror deck, you're pretty much going to sideboard pretty much the same way with the list that I am running. So what I am going to do is I for sure want to bring in one more Chainer's Edict. Since it kind of gets around the ward triggers, especially if they only have, one creature out or one of their serpents out. It is a very good removal spell against them. And then you're also going to want to bring in 4 Nihil spell bombs so that you can take their graveyard away from them. And what do you take out? So against both of them, I would take out 1 Suffocating Fumes, as this is not going to be great against them, though both of the decks have been running Murmuring Mystic as of late. So you are going to, if they do get a Murmuring Mystic to stick around the field very long, you are definitely going to want to deal with their flock of birds, so to speak. So you're gonna, I definitely want to still keep a couple suffocating fumes for that reason, but I don't want to have all 3 as it can potentially be a dead card at times. But you are going to want to have to deal with that board presence that they tend to build up with the Mystic. Then also taking out 2 Unmake. Now, the reason we're taking this out is that it's not a very good removal spell against Tolarian Terror, because it's basically a 5 mana removal spell that just ends up getting uh, spell pierced or something. So it's not very great in that matchup. Definitely exiles their creatures, which is good, but that's really only going to be great against Demir Terror, since they can play things out of the graveyard by using Crawl from the Cellar to bring their creatures back to their hand. But we can just deal with their graveyard with our spell bumps and our Bajuka Bog, so taking out the 2 unmakes. And I'm also going to take out this 1 Custodes Squire. This card is really great in a lot of matchups, but with this matchup, we really want to deal with their board presence the most. This can be really great for just general mid-range games that are very, very grindy, where you're both just slinging a lot of removal at each other. And though you will see plenty of removal in both Demir Terror and Is It Terror, we want to be better about dealing with their graveyard their and their board state. So this is also one thing that I would cut in that matchup. And then I'm also going to take out 1 copy of Cast Down. Basically because we want to go full on with the Chainer's Edict, since it's a much better removal spell against creatures with Ward. And though I do want to still keep the 3 cast downs, because especially in Is It Terror, there are plenty of other creatures that we are going to want to kill. So cast down is very good against them. So, but definitely the Chainer's Edict are really great against Tolarian Terrors if they do get on the battlefield and that is their only creature. It's really the best removal spell we have for them. So definitely want to go 4 on that and just go down to 3 cast down. And so that is how I would sideboard against both Demir Terror and Is It Terror. And against Demir Faeries. So we're not actually going to be bringing a lot in against them, since they are mostly just a kind of mid-range control deck, but they do have a lot of creatures on the battlefield that we will want to deal with. I believe they are also running Murmuring Mystic at the moment. So we're going to want to have sweepers for both all their birds as well as all of their fairies. So we're definitely want to keep all that stuff in. I am going to want to bring in though two arms of Hadar as well as a one mana tithe. So when they tap out to counter something with their spell stutter sprite, we can mana tithe that sprite, and that is something that they will not see coming. So what we're going to take out though is we are going to take out these two unmakes against them. Even though this is a really great removal spell, making sure we can sweep their board as as a lot of their plan revolves on them having creatures on the battlefield that they can ninjutsu and get their Ninja of the Deep Hours out, and we want to take that value train away from them. So we're going to take out two unmakes as well as taking out one ephemerate, which is kind of crazy as this whole deck is sort of built around this card, though it is also a very easy card for them to counter with things like Spell Stutter Sprite or Spell Pierce, which they most certainly will be running. Definitely we still want to have ephemerates around to sort of take the game over late game, though it's not something we're going to want to be playing very early. It's something we're going to want to draw in later if they start to fizzle out and have used up all their counter spells against us. So not really bringing in a ton of things against Dimir fairies, but we definitely want to be able to control the board. So definitely want to stick around with the three copies of Suffocating Fumes and bringing in two Arms of Hadar and the Mana Tithe, which is a very spicy piece of tech that hopefully they don't see coming. And my experience with it is that generally, they do not. They usually think they are safe against a Orzhov list when they tap out to play a counterspell. But that is why we have one sneaky mana tithe in our deck, so that we can maybe gain some small advantages here and there over the game so that we can take it over and win. And that is how I will be sideboarding against Dimir Fairies. The next deck that we are going to talk about how we're sideboarding against is Golgari Gardens, also sometimes listed as Golgari Control. And so this matchup is very much a mid-range versus mid-range matchup. Can be very fun with just how swingy a lot of the turns can be. Definitely one of my favorite matchups to play, not because I'm very much in favor of the matchup playing Orzhov Ephemerate, but just because it is a lot of fun. Just how interactive the game is. So basically, we're gonna want to bring in stuff where we can kind of outvalue them and small take small advantage over the course of the game to come out on top. And so what I'm gonna do is even though they do have a few one toughness creatures, I'm gonna be taking out our three copies of Suffocating Fumes, as it doesn't do a whole lot to a lot of the stuff that they have. Targeted removal is going to be a little bit better here. Sure, we can take out some of their plant tokens and their crypt rats with suffocating fumes, but that's about it, and it doesn't really seem to give us a whole lot of advantage. And so what I would bring in after taking our three copies of suffocating fumes out is I'm going to bring in one more Chainer's Edict just to have some more removal. And then we'll also bring in one more copy of Dawnbringer Cleric. Uh, Basically, here we can gain a little extra life and just sort of get more of an advantage on the life gain plan because it is gonna be a battle there for sure. And also we can exile cards from their graveyard like their trolls that they hope to get back with, say, a witch's cottage or any other creatures that go to the graveyard. And then one other thing that I'm going to be bringing in against them is a Union of the Third Path. Now this lets us gain a considerable amount of life as well as drawing more cards, which is definitely going to be very pivotal in that matchup. So so we're not really bringing in a bunch against Gardens. I used to bring in Dust to Dust and um let's see, I used to run some land destruction in the sideboard, but I have since taken that out and I don't really think you want to bring in Dust to Dust in this matchup, mostly because in older lists they were running Vault of Whispers, but now they've kind of switched to an all swamp plan, and a great play before was, taking away their lands early game, especially their Vaults of Whispers and whatever utility artifacts they have. And then they still are running a bunch of different artifacts that they can uh, get a lot of advantage from. The bigger threat to me is definitely their Avenging Hunters and their Trolls, which those are going to be very tough for us to deal with, and that can really swing the game in their favor. So we are definitely trying to go more on the side of dealing with those threats instead. So you could, I definitely see an argument for bringing in Dust to Dust, though. Now that they're not running artifact lands, like I said, that seems like less of a great card to bring in against them. Well, next matchup we're going to talk about is glitters, and there are a lot of different variations on glitters. Generally, we're probably looking at either blue white or Azorius glitters or Jeskai glitters, as though are the two more dominant versions of it. Though there's also Orzhov and apparently Boros as well is a thing now. So but either way, you're probably going to want a sideboard pretty similarly to either of those matchups. There are a lot of varieties of it, but we're going to be bringing in pretty much the same cards against them. So, cards that we are taking out, we're definitely going to be taking out these three Suffocating Fumes. And what we'll do is that we'll then bring in three copies of Dust to Dust, as this is a huge answer to basically everything they're running. You can hit their lands, their creatures. If you want to take out a Mirror Enforcer and a Frogmite, you can definitely do that. Ornithopters, etc. Animated lands from the Kenku Artificer. And then we are also going to be taking out one Spirited Companion and bring in another Dawnbringer Cleric, since we can blow up enchantments with that. And then we are also going to be taking out one Custody Squire, as unless they are running the Jeskai uh, version, you're not going to see a whole lot of removal against them. They are generally less interactive and more proactive in terms of their play style. And then also taking out one Chainer's Edict, as not a great removal against them, as they usually have a bunch of expendable creatures, so they're gonna keep their creature that does have all the glitters attached to it around, and that is something that Chain Edict is gonna have a hard time dealing with. And then we're also going to be bringing in two copies of Patrician's Scorn. So even if they've gotten multiple copies of all that glitters out, we can basically wipe the board all by for free, even at the cost of no mana, if we have played a white spell this turn. And most of the deck are white spells, so obviously Dust to Dust. Unmake counts as a white spell. We can ephemerate something and then play Patrician Scorn. And pretty much our entire creature base outside of our Thorn of the Black Rose and our Vampire Sovereigns are all white creatures, and they are thus all white spells. So Patrician Scorn most of the time is going to be a spell you're casting for no mana. Though if you need to, you can also pay for and play it. That's generally not what's going to happen, but it is still a very efficient spell for the deck and can deal with those enchantments. And if they are also running, I think some lists are, or they may have stopped running Moon Circuit Hacker, it can also get rid of the Moon Circuit Hacker, which can really help them dig in their library for more cards. But that is pretty much how I would sideboard against basically any glitters affinity type of list. All right, and the final deck that we're talking about on how to sideboard against with this list is going to be mono red Kuldotha. And so I think a lot of the choices that we have in our sideboard is pretty obvious, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be bringing in two arms of Hadar, since they do tend to go wide. We're going to want to have as many sweepers available. So we'll be going up to 5 sweepers, and then I'll be taking out these two unmakes, as holding up 3 mana against them is a little tough, especially if we can only take out one creature. Definitely Suffocating Fumes is a bit better, especially if they play a Kuldotha Rebirth and into a Goblin Bushwhacker. And then one other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out one Ephemerate against them, which seems a little crazy, but we are just going to bring in that Union of the Third Path, as most of the time this is going to be 3 mana to gain 6 life, which can be pretty backbreaking against a red player. Also going to be taking out one Spirited Companion and bringing in a Dawnbringer Cleric, as this can help us gain life. They do run, I think, what's the enchantment? Seal of Fire. You could potentially kill that Seal of Fire or exile, a lava dart from their graveyard, but most of the time you're just going to want to be gaining a little extra life with this card. That's the main use against this matchup. So yeah, we're bringing in anything from our sideboard that can help us gain life, since they are a red deck and they do go face with their lightning bolts and their galvanic blasts. If some lists are still running them, although I have seen some that aren't. But some do go more spell heavy with lava darts and fire blasts, that sort of thing. So definitely want to be able to control their board. So targeted removal is great. Still just going with the 3 Chainer's Edicts. So you could bring in another Chainer's Edict against them, though I think the arms of Hadar and having the 3 Suffocating Fumes is going to deal with a lot of their board, since none of their board, especially without the Swift Spear around, is going to have a toughness greater than 2, and they don't really run anything to increase the toughness any sort of way. So yeah, the Arms of Hadar and the Suffocating Fumes are the main things that you're bringing in, and then any life gain that you have. Obviously, I'm running Union of the Third Path and Dawnbringer Cleric, so those are the choices against Mono Red Kuldotha. And that's going to do it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth sideboarding guide for this list. Of course, I will have a link to the list in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. And let me know in the comment section below, when thinking about these various matchups, what other cards would you maybe want to run in your sideboard against them, and if there's a way that you would sideboard differently, definitely let me know. I would be interested in hearing your thoughts about that. As always, I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and I will see you all next time.